traditional financial system is slowly fading away. If you take a look at it, the traditional financial system is slowly fading away. I came across crypto maybe 2015. It was the first time I encountered Bitcoin, right? When I was in my senior year of college with my bachelor's. It's disheartening, especially for someone who truly believes in this space and have a passion for it. Get into AI. Don't shun it. Learn it to the best of your ability and use it to your advantage while you still can.
There's going to be a difference, not so between like humans versus AI, but it's humans who understand AI versus humans who don't.
Artificial intelligence is going to touch about 95 to 98% of industries globally. AI, blockchain, crypto, tokenization, DeFi, all that's going to come into the loop, right? Everything from robotics, autonomous vehicles, everything you can think of artificial intelligence is going to be in control entirely.
If you were speaking directly to the average Bahamian, where do you genuinely believe the biggest opportunities are? Before we get into the show, let me ask you something. If you're interested in money, technology, AI, and digital opportunities for Bahamians, why are you still watching from the sideline? Follow CryptoNoobz, subscribe to the channel, and join our community of curious-minded people who want to know how the world is changing and how they can benefit from it. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Welcome back to this week's episode of the CryptoNoobz podcast, where we talk about money, tech, and digital opportunities for Bahamians. I'm your host, Nelson Ricardo, and I'm joined here with my co-host,
Lambo.242.
And on this episode, we're going to be interviewing Michael Clare, Vice President of Digital Assets and FinTech Operations at Liongate Bahamas. How are you doing, Michael?
Hey, man, I'm doing okay. Thank you for having me on, and really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us, man. So first and foremost, Michael, as I said before, we've actually been following your journey inside of the fintech and the digital assets space. And we also came across some interesting information saying that you're one of the first persons to get any sort of degree around blockchain technology and crypto assets. Could you just talk to us about it? I saw that you got it sometime in 2017. Tell us, why were you initially interested inside of an industry that was just forming?
I came across crypto, I want to say maybe 2015. It was the first time I encountered Bitcoin, right? It was when I was in my senior year of college with my bachelor's. And I had my professor, my money and banking course professor, and she was speaking about it, right? She had a doctorate from Georgetown, very smart, very intelligent lady. And she was always like one of my professors that was kind of like a mentor to me, right? She worked on Wall Street, and I think she had a stint also in the White House, I think during the Clinton administration. But anyway, she brought it up in class one day, and she was saying this Bitcoin thing. And at that time, obviously, I wasn't really paying much attention to it. But at the time, Bitcoin had to been maybe about $15 for one, somewhere around those. But she was saying in the class, she's like, listen, guys, I heard this thing called Bitcoin. I can help you guys, set up an account or whatever. If you have a few dollars, she was willing to like help us out. But, I was being a college student, I wasn't really caring too much. And any money I come across, I was trying to, survive that more or less, right? So I wasn't thinking about an investment style thing. But anyway, fast forward to about 2017, 2018, when I was doing my first master's in China. I always had some friends who are actually local Bahamians. They came across crypto, and it wasn't more so Bitcoin. It was ICOs, right? Where you had to use Ethereum to invest in them. And they were making a killing just with ICOs alone. And the thing about me, obviously my background is in finance, right? And finance and economics. And I always was keen to the topic of investments and so on and so forth. So obviously I started to read more and get into trading, right? Because I had other friends who were trading, but they were doing more Forex. But Forex to me just wasn't interesting, honestly. One of my close friends who I grew up with. So when he told me about, ICOs, what they were doing, and he showed me the framework they were using, and they were just killing it. That's when I became more intrigued. So I jumped in it, right? But obviously they would have only told me surface level stuff, right? So for me, When I find something intriguing and interesting, I dig and I want to learn all the ins and outs, every single intricacy, every complexity. I want to know the inner workings to the best of my ability, right? I want to know how it works, why it works that way, what's the inspiration, whatever the motivations, all the whole 9 yards. So I started digging and digging a little bit more. Obviously, I would have jumped in and lose money, make money from it at the time, being a noob, so to speak, not knowing, just going based off, my friends' logics and what they say. And these aren't top finance guys in no way, shape, or form. You're just out of, I guess, a framework that worked for them. And they were obviously seeing gains from it. But did they truly understand the fundamentals? No. But, me just being new and trusting them, I just kind of jumped in blindly. And that led to sometimes a hit, sometimes a miss. And again, obviously from losing quite substantial amount, I just, dug deeper, took any free courses, just Google searches, Wikipedia, YouTube, following prominent people on the space on Twitter and so on and so forth. And then from taking those free courses from University of Nicosia, they then offered, like, I guess, a scholarship, right? And at the time, it was a nice partial scholarship, and I was interested in it, so I enrolled, and then I had the scholarship as well. And on top of that, they allowed me to pay my tuition in crypto. So at the time, I'd have caught that, I guess, after the 20,000 peak and still have some great gains, especially from ICO. So it worked out well for me because then I could have used some of those gains and just pay my tuition at the university at the time. So that one in itself, I guess, for my initial interaction and the initial information I gained from just by me researching myself and having the interest itself, that led me to actually continue on with the course and the degree program. And yeah, worked out for me.
That's awesome.
That's amazing, wow.
Yeah.
Your professor, she was trying to make some millionaires inside.
Yeah, man. She was one of the sweetest ladies. Sadly, she passed recently, man. Cancer, but she was, man, she's one of the sweetest ladies you could ever meet, man. People would be jealous because I played football. I played college football. So a lot of times, like, the other students would be like, oh, you always looking out for the football players over everyone. But she kind of did take a liking to the football players, because we were athletes. But yeah, man, she was a very sweet lady, man. She was a great mentor to me. She simplified a lot of things for me and and one thing I'd say about my money in banking class, like, she didn't necessarily just go by the textbook itself. She understood that, listen, the real world and the real finance industry, it ain't too much these textbooks to show you. So she would give us real life scenarios, and she would literally put us on, sometimes in class, she'd put on the Bloomberg channel, or she'd put on like Money NBC and so on and so forth. And she would break down when the Fed's having meetings, she'd break down those explanations, right, in real life. I really appreciated her, God bless her soul. But yeah, man, she was one of the best professors I've ever had in college to date, right? Yeah.
Trust me, you need that mentorship and that guidance. Like, when you look at a lot of people who work in certain industries, they'll always go back to either that one person or a few people who actually like really steer them in a certain direction. And definitely you need that to facilitate the new thinking for a new generation, if you will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%, man. Especially in that journey. See, and I try to mentor younger college kids. When I have some time, and when some reach out, and I try to guide them because, especially when you're young, you still trying to figure everything out, right?
Yeah.
You're still getting pulled in different directions when you still don't have it all figured out. When you think something is, in actuality, it isn't, right? So I try to be that whisper in there, to be somewhat of a guidance to that college student because I knew what it was for me and kind of what it took. And just like you said, just that small bit of help and assistance could go a long way, right? And could change a lot, right? I definitely agree with that.
Definitely. So let me ask you this. Before you started working at Lionsgate, you were an economist for the Ministry of Finance, right? How did that experience change the way you think about digital assets? And like, from working inside that, I guess within that structure, did you see like where blockchain could have like either change the system or make the system work more efficiently?
Honestly, in that realm, I was dealing with more government systems, government processes, right? And as we know, dealing with a government process and system is a bit more of a legacy, extensive paperwork. Obviously, there isn't much automation, so to speak. So yes, I saw opportunities where blockchain could have provided some sort of impact and ease of getting things done from an automated process approach. At the time when I was there, obviously blockchain would have became a little bit more of a prominent thing. But again, it wasn't blockchain technology. It was always the emphasis on crypto, digital asset from a financial standpoint, right? Not understanding the underlying technology, its capabilities, and what it can do in terms of enhancing, processes, frameworks, and systems that are more manual based, right? So, yeah, I think there were quite some opportunities that blockchain could have been effective, but trying to get that process a little bit changed is not the most easiest task, and the hurdles involved in that is not for the faint of heart, or So,
Yeah.
but I would agree, yes, that blockchain technology could provide tremendous impact. And more so, probably, in my opinion, the most effective probably would have been in a storage capacity, and information sharing capacity. I believe that could have been one of the most effective ways, among other things, which could provide spillover in the financial side again, but yeah.
Mhm.
I got you.
I definitely agree. So I came from a government background working in digital transformation. So I understand where you're coming from, where we do have some legacy systems that, could use some improvement in some places. But I would say that I am slowly seeing some changes. I saw recently in the news, I think that they used blockchain technology for something to do with boating. I couldn't remember if it had something to do with getting a boating license, but it came out in the newspaper that they're now using blockchain to assist with that process. So that was a really good step forward.
Which ministry was this?
I honestly cannot remember. However, I did share it on my LinkedIn. So
Okay.
anytime after, I could go and find that for you. But
Okay. That's
progress
good.
is happening. Progress is happening inside some areas.
I love
So,
to hear.
but to your point about how the emphasis was more on crypto instead of blockchain, you know, nowadays when a lot of Bahamians hear the word crypto, they immediately associate it with scams, hacks, or people losing money. So what is the biggest misconception that you wish people would just let go of?
Boy, it's interesting. I just had this conversation with my mom literally at the dinner we had just like an hour ago. Because she was saying, she keep hearing these people saying you put some money in and then you'll make this money and all this and all that. And anyway, you just look back and I say, Mommy, listen, don't you dare put your money in any of that. You know what I mean? Don't you know what I mean? Because they were asking me, right? Just for context, they were asking me, how much to put in now because they want to put some money in crypto or whatever, and and all this. And I was obviously frank, with them, and my dad, and I pretty much told them, so listen, this isn't a get rich quick thing. And if anybody tells you, oh, you're gonna get rich overnight, or you put some money in and you're just gonna see a bunch of money come in this and X, Y, Z at this amount of time, run away as quick as possible. And I told them straight up, they target people obviously of your knowledge level who have limited knowledge, and they try to make it look as fancy and pretty and shiny as possible to say, oh, if you put in this amount, you're going to be getting hundreds of dollars on a weekly basis. And I've seen it all. I've seen these scams.
Yeah.
I mean, top to bottom, left to right, name it. So anyway, it's just funny you brought that up. But to your point, honestly, I would say it's disheartening, especially for someone who truly believes in this space and have a passion for it. But unfortunately, that's what we're faced with because obviously when it started, the negative took over the positive. That's just the reality of it, right? Digitalized crypto, when it first came around, its most prominent use case obviously was within the Silk Road. It was used mostly in a negative capacity and not with its an intent following the creation, right? So with that, there was a negative connotation would have then been carried on for years and years, no matter how many hurdles it would have overcame and shown its underlying use case where it could be very, very useful to those, around the world, right? Globally, depending on their financial situation, no matter what, no matter showing what the underlying technology has the capabilities of accomplishing. Obviously, that the negativity is hard to shake. Needless to say, about all the hacks that happen, like major exchanges, obviously the FTX debacle, unfortunately we live in a world where the negative obviously sticks longer than the positive, right? So, in terms of a reputation, that's why you always work hard to maintain your reputation as much as possible, because you have to work 50 times as harder to remove that negative from your reputation or your name, right? So again, regardless of the major strides the space has made, becoming a little bit more institutionalized, more formalized, obviously with rules and regulations, regulatory frameworks, regulatory bodies, central banks, securities commissions, so on and so forth, provide their own iterations in terms from a legislative standpoint. There's still that bad taste in a lot of people, many people, probably the majority in people's mouths as it relates to the crypto space. And still to date, there's still scams that are going on. People talk, I've seen it despite my parents, but recently, obviously, people usually reach out to me, to either get started on crypto or learn a little bit more. And again, I look at the demographics, it's mostly those of our older generation too, who are not as tech savvy, obviously as younger generation. So, it was an older couple, they would have reached out to me, and apparently this was someone posing as, I guess, a family friend who they knew. And I guess they hacked the family friend account. They created a wallet, quote unquote wallet for them, and it had crypto in it. But in return, they had to send some money to them or something along those lines. And the wallet, what it showed, it wasn't a real wallet interface. It was a made up prototype that had a predefined number next to the quote unquote Bitcoin that was in there. But in actuality, the Bitcoin was never in that wallet. And the wallet address wasn't even real, right? But obviously for someone who's not savvy or understands space even to a basic extent, they wouldn't pick up on it. And again, it's posing as a quote unquote family friend, and they hack like the family friend email address or something like that. And yeah, they were trying to use crypto, as that scam, underlying scam, obviously to steal those innocent people's funds. So yeah, that's where we are. But we're working hard to change that space, right? And it takes people such as ourselves who are knowledgeable to continue to educate, to point out these scams, and try to bring some sort of credence to say, hey, it isn't all bad. And honestly, it isn't as bad as it once was, if you're being honest, right?
Yeah, like you say, every time I go to a family gathering, I have like either uncle or cousin, and I notice they target older people who come to me and ask me, like, oh, this person was messaging me. And I was like, and I read the messages and I'm like, yeah, this was, like, and it isn't like, all right, it's like some of these people, they use like a lot of social engineering, right?
Yes.
A lot of social engineering. They'll impersonate people in the space who, and like they say, they impersonate a family friend. They'll impersonate people who that person already knows. So there's a level of trust there. And that's when it's like your guard drops.
Yeah.
And like they say, scammers, they have all the time in the world. I don't know where they find the time, but they find all the time.
That's their job, man. Like I tell people, like, you have a job, right? I have a job. A scammer's job is to scam. That's the easiest way you can put it. Like, that is their job. A thief's job is to steal. That's their job. So, you know what I mean? That's how they make their money. So how your job is how you make your money, that's how they make their money. It may not be the cleanest way, but that's their job. Just protect yourself.
I've been there. I done get scammed before, so I know exactly how I feel.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Same here, boy.
I've been through the ropes, boy. First starting out. That's how I have the knowledge to point it out now, to be honest with you. Because I've been there, done it. I could pick up on a coin, token. I could pick up on anything. I could pick it up at this point in time. Right? I've been hit quite a few times. You name it. I done been through it all, so it ain't much that could get past me at this point in time. But I had to learn. Unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn the hard way.
I don't want to go too much off a tangent. Remember the pump.fun craze and everyone's buying meme going on pump.fun?
Yeah.
I remember the UFC posted, say, all right, they post a link and say, oh, that's the UFC coin, right? I ain't even ask no questions. I go on, copy and paste that, I buy that. Then the US issued a statement, but oh, we were hacked, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I talking about the official page. That's basically like the NBA.com saying we have NBA coin. And the NBA say, hey, we got hacked. Like, if y'all buy that, like, sorry,
Yep.
man. Yeah. They
wow.
trust me, they keep working hard.
That's their job, buddy. So I've been there, done it. You learn, right? And it teaches you. It's no better teacher than experience, like they say, right? You could teach and run on as much as you could, but if you never went through it, to what extent do you really know that, right?
Yeah.
And if you've been through it, you understand, say, okay, here's the red flags, the preliminary red flags, what I need to look out for. Here's the boxes that need to be checked off prior to me putting money in, and so on and so forth, So, yeah, it's a tough lesson, but we went through it, eh?
So, Michael, Liongate is helping connect finance with digital assets through custody, trading, compliance, and regulated services. So, for someone watching this podcast, right? Let's say the average person or let's just say a Bahamian who've never heard of Liongate before. What problem are you solving? If you could explain it to them, like what's the problem that Liongate is solving?
So the problem we are solving, right, is it spans mostly on the previous topic just then, right? So obviously, when you want to purchase digital assets, you want to do it in a compliant nature, and you want to do it with a trusted source. Obviously, a firm or let's say any type of service provider with a clean track record and a track record who understands the capacity, what it is you're looking to obviously purchase or sell, or the space, the nature of the business, right? One that is licensed, fully regulated, and obviously operating in the compliant capacity is whatever jurisdiction that may be, right? So that's pretty much what we stand to solve from a local capacity, and obviously within the digital asset space, right? We're regulated and licensed via the Securities Commission of the Bahamas, holding a DARE license, as well as a financial and corporate services provider license. Moreover, we are part of a broader financial group, the Equity Group, who has 40 plus years within the financial services space. So we understand compliance like it's second nature. We understand how to operate within a legal framework whereby, clients' funds, data, information, and then understand the client's needs would then be handled in a compliant nature and in a safe environment. Obviously, where there's recourse in the event something goes wrong from your custodied funds, or there's recourse in the event, obviously, you want to make a purchase of digital assets or you want to sell, and we combine both traditional financial rails as well as decentralized financial rails with incorporating the traditional financial system with the also digital financial system or digital assets, right? So that's more so what we stand out to accomplish in order to bridge that gap, right? To making sure people feel safe and secure when utilizing our services, understanding if they don't fully understand, they get the proper guidance on how the process would work, either whether it's from a custody side or if they may want, of their digital assets to purchase real estate, or if they want to use their digital assets to subscribe to a fund and so on and so forth. Right? We provide that full gambit from that standpoint, right?
All right, got you.
So basically, customers come to Liongate when they're just looking for that safe, secure option that will help them to take their monies and invest it into things that would more than likely give a return.
Right. So again, a lot of our clients, not even just for an investment. So honestly, what we're seeing now is not even just from purchases from investment. A lot of times what we see in the space overall now is people using digital assets from a payments perspective, where they use those and mostly, obviously, stable coins, again, where they want to have those funds transferred to either make purchases for whatever it may be, right? So that's what we're seeing mostly. Or they would have already been on the receiving end of digital assets of a substantial amount, but they don't have knowledge of it, right? They don't know what this crypto stuff is. So therefore, they don't feel comfortable keeping it themselves in their own personal wallet, right? They would rather a licensed, regulated institution with insurance to store it for them, right? Because, they don't want to have the pressure on them with having their own private keys and trying to still make sure they don't lose it or lose access to a scam, like you say, to a trusted person. They don't want that pressure on them. And this is a hefty amount, right? This is bits and pieces. So they will come to a regulated entity as us to then, do the custody side of things, right?
And definitely you can see how important that is, because once again, going back to what we spoke about earlier, like how whole exchanges went down and like a lot of different places have actually been hacked. So just that layer of security just gives you peace of mind,
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. 100%. 100%.
So that brings me to this, right? So the Bahamas has actually been one of the first countries to create laws around digital assets. But the average Bahamian's perspective of crypto has just been, scams and all that good stuff, right? So here's the issue. Many Bahamians feel as if they haven't really benefited from anything with digital assets or blockchain or crypto. So why do you think that there's such a gap between our global reputation? Because globally, we are a regulated country. Crypto regulation is here, blockchain regulation is here. We have our rules. But the everyday person doesn't really experience any of that, nor do they really understand any of this stuff. Like, why do you think there's such of a gap?
That's a very good question. And I spoke on this. This was about a bit alongside, I think, Christina Rule and Keith Davies. Anyway, it was at UB. It was a couple of months back, and they asked something similar. Here's my answer, right? I think it starts from a educational level, from a school system perspective, right? I believe, naturally speaking, was never a jurisdiction from an education standpoint to implement investing and to pinpoint, well, to highlight and magnify financial literacy throughout our schools from junior level to high school. Now, obviously in college and tertiary level, you get to choose whether, but just basic financial literacy, basic investments, understanding that every dollar should be working for you. Well, not every dollar, but most of the funds that you have, you should be trying to think of ways to make this $1 work for you in whatever capacity that may be. Obviously, crypto is a investment vehicle that provides investment opportunities. Yes, there's a bit more higher risk as a vehicle that was it the Gen Z and further up. I'm not sure what they're called, but Gen Z's, the younger generation would be more peculiar on and more in particular with, because obviously the baby boomers and so on and so forth are used to more physical, tangible investments where I get a brick and mortar building or, a share certificate and so on and so forth, where they could touch and see. But then when you look at, again, the Gen Zs and the generations after, everything is digitized, digital. So it isn't as far-fetched and is a little bit more easier to grasp for them to say, hey, this is a digital currency in strictly digital format. And now I can relate to that because why? All I know is digital. Myself, from cell phones to the way they interact with social media, kids with their iPads and internet connections. That's something they've known from the day they were born. So they could fathom these things and digest these things a bit more easier. You know what I mean? So I think, as a part of the whole ecosystem of a digitized way of going about doing things, that could be easily more incorporated from a financial literacy standpoint. Because in financial literacy, you are taught, listen, you save a certain X amount, you invest X amount, and then you have X amount to take care of your needs, obviously, pay bills and so on and so forth. And then you have X amount to then, have some fun with, do whatever it is you want to have some enjoyment, right? And that's just the basics of financial literacy. And obviously, when you delve into each one of those topics, you would then pinpoint to say, okay, here's the percentage that works best for me based on my salary and so on and so forth, right? So just to your point, I think we need to incorporate that in our school systems, financial literacy, right? So for me personally, I'm doing my part. I have a daughter right now. My daughter's about to be 3, but even now I try to teach her little smidges things. She's counting and she can count up to about 20 now. But even little small things, I try to show her, as it pertains to money how do you go about doing these things, right? And I don't want to say it all starts in the school systems, and obviously parents play a role too, right? So I encourage parents to start your kids from young, teaching them financial literacy in these things, because then it'll pay off much more in the future, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, because I had a conversation with someone, right? And they were saying that a lot of parents, even though they might not understand crypto and blockchain in depth, they will invest in their kids understanding it.
Yeah.
Because people really want their kids to be like kind of ahead of the ball, or at least know what's going on around them. Some parents might feel like, all right, that's kind of like beyond my time. You know, I grew up in the cash system or a
Yeah.
regular
Yeah.
banking system. So for them to sit down and try to learn a whole new system to them,
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's different.
They don't even care about it.
Yeah. They remember real life stuff now. Like mortgage gotta pay, you know?
But to your point as well, I wholeheartedly agree with that there needs to be, more financial literacy, because when you really look at it, I think the average Bahamian understands getting money, right? So, and I think given our culture, we're used to a tourism culture where money is usually gotten very fastly, from the various tips and what's not. Bahamians know how to get to the money, but then what happens afterwards usually is where the problem lies.
Yeah.
If you go to a web shop and you win some money, what happens next? A brand new Honda Accord. But I do have a follow-up question to that. With financial literacy, what ideas do you have that might actually assist with the problem? Now, definitely there are the parents that are going to have to be assisted. There are also going to be the kids, the next generation that's coming up that's going to be assisted. But what ideas do you think could actually assist with the financial literacy problem?
Every school, every curriculum has mandatory sets of classes that students have to take, right? They have mandatory classes. And then you have your electives and so on and so forth. I think make financial literacy, just financial literacy, right? A mandatory course or subject. I think that's a good start. And again, it's just saying in the basics, I don't think it needs to be too complex. It's just saying, listen, students, you're not going to be in school forever. At some point, you're going to, graduate. You're going to move on in your lives, be in your career, and you're going to need to know, listen, when I make $1, what do I do with this dollar? How do I divide this up? How do I, sustain myself? When I get my family, how's the best way, I go about making sure I have things in order after I would have then received my paycheck. Or let's say I do have a habit in playing numbers, which I wouldn't encourage, but if I do have a habit and I do come up on some funds, what do I do with to ensure I don't give it right back? You know what I mean? So I think the first step, what I would suggest, make it mandatory such that there's a financial literacy class that every student has to take, possibly between grade 11 and 12 when they're a bit more mature, probably 11 and 12. Obviously they wouldn't have been fully mature, but they're a bit more mature in a sense, and start there. And throughout that, teach the basics of, I guess, $1, teach the basics of money. And then you can possibly touch on investing to a certain degree, but obviously not everyone. I think it'll be a bit intricate in the sense that the extent of which students pay attention when you delve deep down into finance will have to be a little bit more fine-tuned, because not everyone want to get fully in depth on the accounting side. Not everyone want to get fully in depth on the investment side. You know what I mean? So, but I think just that broad surface layer to say, hey man, when you get $1, it's best that you make this dollar work for you any way, shape, or form, right? And then I think you start from there. And again, invest from an investment standpoint, the investment vehicles. Again, crypto is one of them. It isn't the end all tell all. There's stocks, there's bonds, there's real estate, there's private equity. There's so many different options, right? That we need to let our students know, and let us as Black people know that these options are available. Because I've lived in America for 10 years when I went to high school in America, and I have American friends, Black friends, and again, they themselves too are not privy to this information because, growing up, I always thought that investing was only something the wealthy have the ability to do, right? Or those who are quote unquote better off, right? That was always the perception I had. And majority of my peers locally and in America, right? So that was the perception I always had. But then as I got older, and obviously I would study more and then go down, and I began to realize like anybody can invest. Like you could invest as low as possible. Investing is just that, an investment. Now, obviously, there are tiers of investment and the amount of capital that you can now inject in a particular project or a particular vehicle. That's based on your means, but you can invest. Invest. Anybody can invest. And the objective of investing is to see a return. You see what I'm saying? So I would say we just start there from that basic level. And then those who are interested, who wants to become a more prominent investor, then they go to further study. But just basic level financial literacy, listen, save, invest, use this for that, or set goals with your money. I think those need to be taught from a young age. That's my opinion, right?
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about foreign investment. When I imagine you've met a lot of international investors, right? When they look at the Bahamas, what opportunities like in digital assets do they see that most Bahamians might not even be privy to? Because I always say investing in the Bahamas is really more so an awareness issue that we have. Like a lot of Bahamians just aren't aware of certain opportunities that exist for them.
So that's a good question. So on the digital asset investment side, I would say where most foreigners who come across my desk recently, it was more on the tokenization side. That's more so because of the DARE license and DARE Act that we have. It gives them a higher level of comfort to know that there's some sort of framework in place. And obviously, it isn't a jurisdiction where, things are unstable, right? It's a stable economy. Our government is fairly stable in comparison to many jurisdictions. And there's a regulatory framework that speaks to the space. So, that ensures them that they have a sense of recourse, something that was go wrong, and also that they can operate in a compliant nature as opposed to jurisdictions that don't have a regulatory framework. And when they do decide to implement this framework, now the companies that have already been established have to fight to get either to become compliant or face major fines and so on and so forth. As you see what happened in Europe with Mika license, a lot of exchanges, and I think even Binance too, they weren't able to operate in the EU because with the MiCA license now being in play, it wasn't always the case. So now with the MiCA license now just coming into effect entirely, now a lot of exchanges had to shut down and not operate in the EU. And obviously in the Bahamas, we've solved that issue. And obviously with our DARE Act and DARE license, it encompasses, from a tokenization standpoint, it encompasses from a stable coin offering standpoint, from an exchange standpoint. We have a comprehensive framework that allows these particular Web3 or digital asset firms to operate in, right? So I've been seeing that a lot, especially those from a tokenization capacity and the industries that they want to impact span from real estate to, from bonds, stocks, insurance, is many fascinating projects, right? So from a Bahamian local perspective, in terms of investing in that capacity itself, obviously tokenization would allow for a more democratized sense of investing, would have been legacy industries, right? So obviously the ease of entry due to the barriers within these industries can sometimes be robust and difficult. But with tokenization, this would allow for these barriers to be somewhat shortened and not as extensive anymore. So this would allow more locals more opportunities to enter these particular industries, right? From tokenization capacity.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think tokenization definitely is a new and potentially very profitable aspect of this whole digital space. I think it's a lot of opportunities there.
Yep.
Like I always say, once it's able to get executed correctly,
Yeah.
is always probably profits there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to make sure it has to be a compliant and safe environment, man, because these scammers, they get a hold of that, buddy. It's a lot of money at stake, and I think that's our final shot. If that happens, if it's still gonna once tokenization goes mainstream and these scammers get a hold of that, I don't see us coming back from there. So it has to be executed, like you said, the right way, right?
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
Now, let's just flip that for a second, right? If you were speaking directly to the average Bahamian, where do you genuinely believe the biggest opportunities are over the next 5 to 10 years? Like, do you think it's in investing, building businesses, learning technical skills, tokenization, AI, or is it something else?
A lot of AI for Bahamians. Learn AI. Learn AI as much as you could right now. This is the beginning. And then there's a little bit more the ease of access to learning this AI as much. Learn it, study it inside and out, because that's the next wave that's going to power the entire world for everything from robotics, autonomous vehicles, everything you could think of artificial intelligence is going to be in control entirely. So learn artificial intelligence to the best of your ability now. I would encourage any young person to start learning that shoots. Even me, I am trying to learn it and it's, to the best of my ability, right? In every capacity, because that's going to be the building block to what's to come in the future, right? And what I foresee is an entire ecosystem, right? From artificial intelligence combined with digital assets and blockchain technology, all being in that one loop, right? Digital assets, the underlying technology is obviously going to be powered for artificial intelligence. And then obviously currency will always remain, right? So that currency would be digital assets. And obviously with blockchain technology being the carrier and the underlying tech for the digital assets to be now distributed and moved. And then I think that blockchain is going to be used in a capacity more so, I would say, on a storage level or just from a digital identity, right? This is my thinking, what I assume is where it's going to be incorporated, but I know for a fact it's all going to be incorporated throughout this digital ecosystem that's to come. So again, yeah, that would be my advice to every Bahamian. Get into AI. Don't shun it. Don't just use ChatGPT to make flyers and all those other, because Lord, there's so much more to artificial intelligence
Yeah.
that we know, right? And it's only growing at an exponential rate, and it can be utilized in so many ways. I was listening to a podcast the other day with Michael Clare. He said he made $15 billion using artificial intelligence, right?
Wow.
And he said it solved a problem that he was trying to solve for years. Him and his firm, Strategy, they were trying to solve for years, right? If you listen to all of Mark Cuban, they always say, learn AI as much as you could now. And this is at a time where it's more easy access to learn. So that would be my one advice to anyone right now. Jump on that AI train, learn it as much as you could, because the business model of making money has changed drastically in a sense where it's become a bit more easy because we're in such a digitized age. You could make money just sitting on your couch with a cell phone or a laptop.
Yeah.
And, you have some sort of program in place. It's that much more easier. And with artificial intelligence, you could span that and streamline that process times 5 million. Because while you're sleeping on AI doing everything for you, you know what I mean? With AI, with agents now and co-work, it's so much capability. So learn it to the best of your ability and use it to your advantage while you still can.
And I wholeheartedly agree. This is a shameless plug to our crypto and coffee meetups. At our most previous meetup, we actually held a session where we showed how you could have AI to work for you. As in, a lot of people are used to ChatGPT, just you put in an input and you get an output, versus how to actually use the AI. And we use ChatGPT for the example to actually do the work for you and give you results. And a lot of people, they appreciated it because they now saw, okay, now the robots are working for you. You have employees that you already then paying $20 a month for.
Yeah.
And they're doing the work,
Yeah. And doesn't sleep. Don't need sleep. Don't need food. Don't need water. Everything needs the power. So hopefully BPL.
Yeah, it ain't called an insect. It ain't.
What do you need is power. You give it power, It will never sleep on you.
Even from that meetup, that crypto meetup, trust me, Nelson taught a lot of great things. I even started using my chat GPT different, like as simple as setting it on high. I never really even bothered to even pay attention to that. But yeah, now mine's be working overtime. I sure let's be sucking on BBL power a little bit. I like to be waiting. Yeah, but
Yeah, man. It's amazing and interesting, It was really interesting, and again, I only know a fraction of its capabilities. I mean, from a practical standpoint, but theoretically, the stuff I read and see what has the capacity to do, man,
yeah,
is
We
crazy. And the thing is only becoming more and more, advanced by
yeah,
the day, by the day. You know what I mean? So yeah, that would be my one thing.
yeah.
Invest
and not
invest
the
in learning it of your capital. Look at where the world is going from a investment standpoint and all. Investing in robotics, from spanning, from medical, advanced robotic medical reasons. Again, from autonomous cars to obviously the underlying infrastructure needed, because again, power is always needed for these things to operate. So from the data centers and so on and so forth. And this is a serious opportunity. So 10 years from now, you have the ability to look back and say, yeah, I did it, because this is going to be a major boom, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, Michael, you were involved in organizations like the Bahamas Financial Services Board and the Stanford AI and Web3 Research Lab, right?
Mhm.
Now, from meetings that are being discussed or like conversations you might have seen, what are people excited about that probably haven't hit the Bahamas yet, but probably will, or it might have hit the Bahamas, but it's not really as discussed at scale or like in mass. Like a lot of people are not talking about it as much as they probably should be.
So we just said it.
Yeah, I figured that was it.
Right? Artificial intelligence, to be honest with you, artificial intelligence, I mean, again, in the Bahamas, having access to those rooms and that type of environment, and then obviously comparing it to the Bahamas just from a local perspective, on that level, everything I just said from artificial intelligence, that's being discussed, right? But locally, what I see AI being used for, flyers, ChatGPT flyers, and then to create, little ads, or, to do little documents, and I could spot AI written and, unformatted AI written document from a million miles away. That's
with
pretty
the
much,
dashes,
yeah,
with the dashes.
dashes, good points, and I get spot that a million miles away. And then, just from the setup of the document, I get spotted out. That's the only extent it's been used for. But outside of that, the things that in different places that artificial intelligence is being used for, man, is amazing just to see and hear them talk about it, right? And here's what they're building on now. So yeah, that's the best way I can answer that, man.
hmm And definitely, I think that is something that Bahamians need to get more involved in. It is definitely advancing. We're to a place now where AI hires humans.
Yep.
In the previous podcast, we actually spoke about that. There's a site called Rent a Human, where the AI pays humans to do tasks, which is very
Wow,
you
I
know,
never
that's
heard
no
that one
more.
before. I know the AIs, they have been when AIs host interviews, like the AI would host a job interview. I know that, but that
uh,
one, wow. I tell you, it's so many things, and like the average person wouldn't know that, right? That's the first time I heard that one before,
Scary.
right? Yeah, before you know it, artificial intelligence is going to touch about 95 to 98% of industries globally, right? In some capacity. It may not be the end all be all, but in some capacity, AI is going to be integrated, right?
Yeah.
so let's fast forward about 5 years, right? What would success look like, or what would have happened for you to say the Bahamas has become a true leader in digital assets instead of just an early adopter?
And that would be from a 5 year standpoint to say we're a true leader, probably to have, I guess, more prominent firms relocate their headquarters in the Bahamas, right? And also, I think from a national standpoint, from a government perspective, we could implement digital assets on a daily, right? While we've done it in a legislative standpoint, I think if we can implement it from a daily use case perspective, and in some cases, make it be mandated, whether it's having government employees receiving digital assets as a part of either compensation or somewhere along those lines, right? Or taxes could be paid utilizing digital assets. And there's an actual, ecosystem that truly allows for digital assets to be utilized. Now, I understand we have the sand dollar in place, but it isn't as heavily used as we all know, being locals and Bahamians. It isn't as widely known and widely used. So I think if there was a way somehow that, again, it doesn't have to be crypto, just the sand dollar within itself is a little bit more adopted and I guess pushed from a national level, I think that would show that we are truly of a digital assets nature and that we really believe that this should be implemented on a daily basis, right? That's my opinion.
I like that. Definitely 5 years into the future, just Bahamians being able to transact using digital assets, being able to store digital assets, and just them actually using it on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
I would have said before as well on a previous episode, I think when Sand Dollar gets to a point where the most regular Bahamian that you could imagine, a dude named Vado, somewhere in Beantown on his front porch, is now sending sand dollar to one of his friends or one of his friends sending him sand dollar. When we get to a place that Vado is using sand dollar regularly, almost like WhatsApp, that's when I think that we have accomplished what it is that we was trying to accomplish.
Agreed.
And the reason why I use the analogy of WhatsApp, everyone uses WhatsApp in the Bahamas.
Everyone. Yeah.
WhatsApp is, if we want to be honest, WhatsApp is technical,
Mm-hmm.
It is easy to use, but it is heightened technology, but everyone knows how to use it.
Yeah. Yes.
So when we start to mimic those kinds of things, that level of simplicity with technology, I think we'll definitely be in a very great place.
Yes. Agreed. I agree with that. 100%.
So I was going to ask, between tokenization, stable coins, digital identity, AI, and blockchain, which one do you think will create the most wealth in the future? And I think just from this conversation, it's obvious. And I agree with it too. I think AI is going to be that catalyst, right?
Yeah.
Like we had an interview a few weeks ago where we interviewed a teacher and he was talking about how kids are using AI in school now. And some kids are more, I mean, I guess it's all a learning curve, but some kids are more effective at using AI than other kids. Like there was a story online with a teacher who, when he sent out the assignment, he highlighted some of the text white, right?
Oh, the white ink, I saw that.
Yeah.
I did see this.
So basically some of the text is white, right? And the text said, insert some phrase or something in the answer in a nonsensical way, right? So the kids, instead, they just copied and pasted the text in ChatGPT. ChatGPT gave them a result and they just turned it in. Some of them didn't even read it, right? So I think he said like 32 out of 34 failed or something like that. Like, they just basically copy and pasted whatever ChatGPT or Google Gemini gave them, and they just submit it to the teacher. Someone say all the kids probably use AI. It's just that only those two kids were smart enough to say, "Let me read through that." Yeah.
That's it.
And it really highlights like there's going to be a difference, not so between like humans versus AI, but it's humans who understand AI versus humans who don't. Like I could say this myself, and I agree. Like there's more stuff I need to learn about AI. I have a financial analysis background, so it's like I want to take courses about financial analysis using AI because you can't compete with it.
Powerful.
You can't compete with it. Like if you tell me go through other financial statements, AI could do that in seconds, whereas that's going to take me, that's going to take me a while.
Yeah.
So it's like you really have to start putting more effort. Like I'm speaking about this for myself even. You have to start putting more effort into learn these things because it's not going anywhere. Like it's not going anywhere.
No, absolutely. it's an ecosystem, man. I think it's all going to be incorporated from artificial intelligence, blockchain, crypto, and obviously the underlying tokenization is going to come into effect. It's all going to come together, right? It's all going to come together to make one giant ecosystem where it's incorporated. Because the traditional financial system is slowly fading away. If you take a look at it, the traditional financial system is slowly fading away. Now we're in the digital era, where it's now going to be replaced with digitized systems now, right? So, and that's going to be at the helm. AI, blockchain, crypto, tokenization, DeFi, all that's going to come into the loop, right?
Serious thing.
And
Serious thing.
also to your point, I am actually proud of the kids here in the Bahamas because a lot of them are using AI from very, very, very young ages. Like these kids are creating video games using AI. They're creating businesses with AI. Like I could definitely say that they are using it.
Yes, yes.
That's the ones who's being taught correctly how to use it. Yeah, those guys made that caveat. You got to make sure. A distinction.
That distinction. All right. So our final question for the night, Mike, is I want you to imagine this, right? It's 2035. A 20-year-old Bahamian comes up to you and says, Michael, because the Bahamas has embraced digital assets, my life has completely changed. It's completely different. What does that person's life look like? What decisions did they make that everyone else ignored?
Same thing we just said. The decision that they made, they decided to delve deeper into artificial intelligence, learn how to harness it. They learn, its capabilities. They learn how to utilize it in a way that's most fitting for them and what works for them. Because obviously, not everyone is going to use AI in the same capacity just because we're humans. AI is AI. Humans are humans. Humans will always have their own personal goals, accomplishments, their own personal likes or dislikes. So they're going to understand how to utilize AI in whatever field that they may be in and harness it, obviously, in a way whereby it optimizes whatever industry that they're in. And that's going to let them be successful.
I wholeheartedly agree. So that would be the end of our podcast this evening. Mike, I just want you to let our viewers know, like, if they want to contact you or they want to contact Liongate, how can they get in contact with you?
Oh, absolutely, man. So you can reach out to our email is contact@liongatebahamas.com, or my email is m.clare@liongatebahamas.com. The office number, I don't know the top of my head. Check the website. I don't know the office number. Call the office number, and digital era. Everything is online now. But yeah, just go to the website and definitely just give us a call or shoot an email, and we'll be glad to assist any way we can, man.
Awesome. And can we get your socials as well?
I have my LinkedIn. I'm not on too many social media platforms. My LinkedIn is my name, Michael Clare. But other than that, I don't really do too much social media, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think social media takes up a bit too much time and you end up scrolling. You know what I mean? But LinkedIn is the best way, definitely reach me out.
Awesome. So once again, we'd just like to thank you for joining us on the CryptoNoobz podcast. And with that being said, to our audience, you guys have a great night. Peace.
Okay. Take care.